What up, peeps? Mr. Bones back at you, and it's week 4 of Huluwicked. And here's what I watched this week.
2019's Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. Directed by Andre Alvarado, written by Dan and Kevin Hagerman and Guillermo del Toro, starring Zoe Margaret Coletti as Stella Nichols, Michael Garza as Ramon Morales, Austin Abrams as Tommy Milner, Gabriel Rush as Augie Hildebrandt, and Austin Zajor as Chuck Steinberg. On Halloween 1968, Stella and her 2 friends meet a mysterious drifter, Ramon, and uncover a sinister notebook of stories. In this movie, you meet Stella and her friends, Augie and Chuck, who remind me of the Losers Club in Stephen King's It, which they get a 4th member when they meet Ramon, running from the town bully, Tommy Milner, who likes to pick on him. And they run into the movie drive-in and just jump in his car, and he's watching Night of the Living Dead, and Stella loves horror movies, and she starts quoting it. And, you know, he's cool with them, he likes them, and then she says, "Do you want to see a real-life haunted house?" And Ramon's down, so yeah, let's go play in a haunted fucking house, you know. They all run off to Sarah Bellows' house, where she has a history she was wrongfully done in the past. And they go playing around in this haunted house, and they steal her book of stories, which unleashes hell upon them. It has a book of stories, like from the actual books, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. And then the book starts going after the kids and writing them into stories. You have all the classic stories from the book, like The Big Toe and Me Tie Dalty Walker and so on. And this was a favorite book of mine as a child. I rented a lot from the school library. And this movie's a lot of fun and very cool to watch this time of year. Highly recommended. 2023's Cobweb. Directed by Samuel Bowden, written by Chris Thomas Devlin, starring Woody Norman as Peter, Cleopatra Coleman as Miss Devine, Leslie Kaplan as Carol, and Anthony Starr as Mark. A 8-year-old boy tries to investigate the mysterious knocking sounds that are coming from inside the walls of his house, unveiling a dark secret that his sinister parents have kept from him. Yeah, so this movie is about Peter. He's 8 years old, and he gets picked on at school. His parents seem a bit distant and slightly abusive, like a little too stern. And it only increases, especially when Miss Devine comes to check on him from school. Then they start getting stricter, and then they eventually lock him in the basement. Meanwhile, he keeps hearing a knocking on the wall and wondering what it is, and eventually starts getting curious and trying to figure it out. Come to find out, he has a sister that he didn't know about, who's not so much living anymore. She's more like Sadako from The Ring or something. This is a good spooky little movie. Came out of nowhere. It'll be a great regular watch for this time of year. It has Halloween in it. It's set around the Halloween season. Got pumpkins and cobwebs and spooky stuff. And yeah, I'd highly recommend checking this one out if you haven't seen it. It's sitting right there for you on Hulu. 2023's The Boogeyman, based on the Stephen King novel. Directed by Rob Savage, written by Scott Beek, Brian Woods, and Mark Heyman, starring Sophie Thatcher as Sadie Harper, Vivian Lyra Blair as Sawyer Harper, and Chris Messina as Will Harper. Still reeling from the tragic death of their mother, a teenage girl and her younger sister find themselves plagued by a sadistic presence in their house, and struggle to get their grieving father to pay attention before it's too late. So in this one you meet Sadie, her younger sister Sawyer, and her father Will, who they have recently lost the mother of the family and are trying to recuperate. Sadie is dealing with going to school and being picked on by people and made fun of. And Sawyer's just a little girl trying to deal with being a little kid and being left alone a lot and having to tend with trying to survive the fucking evil entity in her house until her sister and father realize it's real and join forces with her. So the father is like a therapist that works out of his house. He has a little office off to the side of all the other rooms. And this guy, Lester Billings, who his children get killed at the beginning of the movie before it actually starts, comes to see him after hours and brings along the boogeyman, which was attached to him and has now attached itself to the Harper family. How nice of Lester, huh? But yeah, the rest of the movie is Sadie, Sawyer, and Will trying to deal with the boogeyman. It ends in a big climactic battle in their dark basement. This is a very fun movie. Reminds me of another favorite of mine, Darkness Falls. But yeah, like I said, if you have Hulu, it's sitting right there waiting for you to check it out. Highly recommended. 2022's House of Darkness, directed and written by Neil LaBute. Starring Justin Long as Hap Jackson, Kate Bosworth as Mina Murray, Lucy Walters as Nora Murray, and Gia Cravati as Lucy Murray. Hap offers Mina a ride home with ulterior motives, but his night takes a turn when he learns she lives in a creepy American castle, and the shadowy figures in the corridors make it clear that he isn't welcome. Yeah, so Hap meets Mina at a bar and decides to offer her a ride home, thinking he might be able to get her to participate in some extracurricular activities. And well, the movie spends most of the time in this living room with them sitting there talking, drinking lots and lots of alcohol, drugging him up, and bringing up topics that make him feel uncomfortable. And it starts off with just Mina. Then her sister Nora shows up, and they're telling him a story. And at the end of the story, this guy gets mauled to death. And by the end of the movie, another character shows up, and the story comes to life. The very end was cool, but this is a very long, slow burn. Like, I've never seen a movie like this that makes the story so drawn out. If it piques your interest, check it out. I'm not saying don't check it out. The payoff is cool, but there's a lot of waiting. And yeah. 2022's Barbarian, directed and written by Zach Kreger. Starring Justin Long as AJ, Georgina Campbell as Tess, Bill Skarsgård as Keith, and Richard Brake as Frank. A woman staying at an Airbnb discovers that the house she has rented is not what it seems. Yeah, so in this movie you have Georgina Campbell, who stops at an Airbnb that she reserved online. But it turns out they messed something up, and Bill Skarsgård's character Keith is already staying there. And she's like, oh damn, what am I going to do now? I need somewhere to stay. And he's like, well, share it. We both paid for it. They messed it up, and she's nervous because he's a guy and he's a stranger and she doesn't know him. And he says, I promise I'm a good guy. I won't try nothing. I won't do anything. I'll let you have the bedroom. I'll sleep on the couch. And he comes off as a nice guy. He seems to be. They get along fine, and then they end up finding something in the basement, and like a never-ending tunnel that turns into be like a stairway to hell. There's this creature living down there that looks like the offspring or the mother or the sister or the cousin or the aunt or something of the creature from Castle Freak. And you find Richard Brake down there confined to a bed where he's like drained of life. And yeah, this creature down there from, I don't remember the exact backstory. It's been a minute since I watched this, but the backstory is that creature pretty much from many years of inbreeding. And Richard Brake, I believe, is Specimen A. Eventually, Justin Long's character shows up after the other two are missing in the basement, and he's like either another renter or the owner of the place, and he's like some douchebag talent agent or something, and he stumbles upon the basement as well, and this thing tries to make these adult people drink out of baby bottles with hair, maybe pubic hair coming off the nipple, saying, baby, drink. It's just a balls out fucking crazy movie. If you haven't seen this and this sounds like stuff you would like, if you're into this type of movie, highly recommended. Also on Hulu, me and my wife have been enjoying a couple shows. 2023's Goosebumps reboot, created by Rob Letterman and Nicholas Stoller, starring Justin Long as Nathan Bratt, Will Price as Lucas Parker, which is my favorite character because he's into extreme sports and stuff, Zach Morris as Isaiah Howard, Miles McKenna as James, and Issa Briones as Margot Stokes. A group of high schoolers unleash supernatural forces upon their town. Now they must work together in order to save it. This is a fun reboot / retelling of Goosebumps. It's all new stories from the original with original characters and items sprinkled in. Like, my favorite original episode is The Haunted Mask, which to me is the creepiest one of the originals. This creepy haunted green monster mask that this girl finds and puts on and can't get back off, much like the Eli Roth clown movie. But in this one they changed it up. I was disappointed. It's like some kind of whitish goblin, and I was like, why did they change the design? They changed the look of Slappy, which is fine, but it looks a lot different than he used to. But yeah, you meet this group of friends: Isaiah, Margot, James, Isabel, and Lucas. And there's this backstory about this ghostly character that has returned. His name was Harold, and he went to school there years ago. And these kids' parents done something to wrong him. So he has returned, and he's coming after their children. And you've got the Haunted Mask and Slappy and other things from the original sprinkled in. It's a very fun show. Me and my wife are enjoying it. 2003. Season 3 of American Horror Stories. Not American Horror Story, but American Horror Stories. The spin-off of the main show, which I have to say I enjoy more than the main show. It is an anthology show, very much like the new Creepshow show, with a different story every episode. The first 4 have been released. We have watched them, and they are... Episode 1 is called Bestie. After the loss of her mother, a young woman tries to find a connection with a mysterious online friend. This was a weird little freaky one where this girl and her father have just moved to a new town after losing her mother, and she's watching this online character she likes, and another fan messages her from the chat board. Hi, how are you? I love this character. You want to be friends? And this, the worst idea she ever had was to reply to her and start chatting in private messages, and it turned out to be this creepy, deformed creature that looks like a modern-day witch. And they just go back and forwards. You're my best friend. How are you? And blah, blah, blah. And let's just say it doesn't turn out good at the end. Episode 2 is called Daphne. A smart device with artificial intelligence grows attachment to her user. A guy named Will Caswell gets sent a prototype of a device named Daphne, voiced by Gwyneth Paltrow. That is like the ultimate in future technology. That is like Alexa, but so much more. She is able to make him win online auctions and order him food, turn on a shower to just the right heat and whatnot, so on, but ends up growing jealous of his girlfriend, sends her food that has stuff that she's allergic to and kills her, and lots of other fun activities. Episode 3, Tapeworm, is about Vivian Lee Finch, played by Laura Kariuki, who is a runway model who wants to lose lots of weight and goes to this clinic that her friend tells her about to try this shot that will make her lose weight, but she's not happy enough and it's not making her lose weight fast enough. And then she goes back to the doctor and he says, well, for one thing, why didn't you tell me you had a heart condition that the shot could make your heart blow up? You can't take it anymore. And she freaks out, and he says, well, I do have another method, and shows her this fancy box that looks like a ring box that has a larva to a tapeworm in it. She agrees to take it and regrets it pretty quickly. It makes her want to eat nonstop and makes her want to attack people and smart off to them all the time. And also she's starting to look like a popsicle stick. Also, her boss at the model agency is Lisa Rinna, who plays Sheila Klein, if anyone's heard of her. It's an older actress I like. Episode 4 is called Organ. A blind date through an online dating app goes very awry. This story is about Toby Arcano. He is a real ladies' man, or he really enjoys sex. They show us lots of scenes of women coming and going till he swipes right on the wrong lady which is Natessa, who is like very, he says, exotic looking. She looks like a baby doll or something, I don't know, but she starts to pretend like she's going to get down on him, and then she stabs him with some kind of shot to put him to sleep, and a crew of people come in and steal his kidney. But not only do they steal an organ, they replace it with something else. He goes to the doctor, and they're like, this looks professionally done, and there's something in here, I don't know what it is. It's some kind of organism. He spends the whole show trying to figure out what's going on. He finds this elite group of organ harvesters, and eventually it turns out his assistant and his boss at his regular job are like head of this crazy stuff. It's just a crazy little story. There are just 4 episodes at the moment. The show is still going on. I can see that the next episode is called Backrooms, but there's no description on IMDb, so that'll be the next one me and my wife will be watching, I assume. The show is very enjoyable. We watch it every season, along with I also recommend Goosebumps, which is a new show, and all the movies that I talked about. And now here are some special guest reviews from some good friends of mine.
This is your host, Hobbs Horror, with the 2019 film that gets a 6.3 on IMDb, hour and 32 minutes long. I figured since we're getting close to spooky season, let's start talking about some spooky movies. We're going to be reviewing Haunt today. What are you carving this Halloween? Let's take a look at this film. So basically you have these friends. One of them just got over an abusive relationship, and she's trying to find excitement again in her life. And of course, what better way to find excitement in your life than go to a haunt with your friends? Honestly, that's a real thing. You know, if you're really trying to get out of a slump in your life, or you're trying to make things better, hanging out with your friends on Halloween truly can be a way out. And so they go to this haunted house, you know, and at first they don't really know much about whether or not it's open or not. They're kind of full of it or whatnot. They're kind of saying, oh, well, you know, maybe we should leave. But they realize that it is open. They decide to go in, and there's different characters there, different things happen, and they end up being split up. Now, I know most of you have seen this film. It is a haunted attraction film with a maze and whatnot. I look at it a little bit different. So because I don't want to go too much into the plot summary, because yes, is it a haunted attraction film? But I feel like this one is different. I feel like this one, it plays on your fears. That's what it's supposed to do in the film. If you have a fear, if you have a fear of spiders, if you have a fear of clowns, you have a fear of being slashed, like with a slasher, if you have a fear of just anything in general, that's what they play on in this film particularly. And it's really got a creepy element to it. I know someone outside of our community that just watched this for the first time, and that person was terrified of this movie. And I just want to say that some people say, well, there's nothing special to this movie. It's just like a regular haunt film or a regular haunted attraction film. I don't believe so. This is from the same director that did A Quiet Place, which was another fantastic film that came out in 2018. You know, a couple little things that were unknown about the film is that if you're listening to the TV being played during the mazes or during the haunted house, you can hear Night of the Living Dead being played in the background on the TV. A lot of the characters might have played multiple roles, but I don't want to say what they are because I want you to see the film. People have actually walked out of this movie before due to fear of clowns. If you are not a fan of clowns, this probably isn't for you. A lot of the tunnels are very creepy, very, very scary, atmospheric. But I would say the most difficult one, if you have a problem with any type of a phobia, clowns is definitely not going to be, this movie is definitely not going to be for you. But if you can get past that, that's the element. Because like I've said, this movie plays on your fears, you know. The crew apparently for Halloween night even dressed as all of these characters just for fun. So they had a lot of fun on the set of making this film, which I thought was really cool. But overall, I loved this movie. I liked this. I like to watch this with the house that October built, those type of films to go with it. Haunted attraction films are very cool. I would put this with The Maze, those type films up there. I thought that the creepy elements of the tunnels and whatnot, if you're claustrophobic, it's really hard to watch. I know there's scenes with spiders, and those are difficult to watch too. Just very creepy, shot really well. And I enjoyed this movie. I don't want to give away too much, because really, is there a lot to give away in this film? I mean, you've seen the ending. This is Hobbs Horror. Peace.
Hey, it's the Pacific Northwest Geek, Echo Zero here, and I want to talk to you about Prey, the 2022 movie that is the 5th in the Predator franchise, well, 7th if you count the 2 AVP movies, and I really did enjoy the movie. The CGI could have been better. The scene you see in the trailer with the bear plays out a lot longer in the movie, and I feel that, well, it's a good thing they only give you a smidgen of that in the trailer, because in the movie you can really see that scene that the CGI is not the best. I'm not going to give any spoilers away here, but basically the story is that in 1719 there are these Comanches living on the Great Plains, and one of them, Naru, she wants to be a warrior so that she's as good as the guys. She witnesses a predator ship coming down from the sky, and then when she starts to see the signs of it, she's trying to tell the others in the tribe about it. They're ignoring her, and eventually, of course, it starts attacking the members of her tribe, and it does not hold back. It is it's a bit brutal in in its kills. There is a scene with a bear, not bear, but a wolf. That again, as you see how bad it is. Also, there's a scene where it walks in the water, and we know that water and its cloaking tech don't mix, but apparently the cloaking tech from 300 years ago didn't seem to really have that issue. I know that because they made it 300 years in the past, 300 plus years in the past, they're able to use the changes technology to give it an older form of the tech. There is a lot of throwbacks to the first 2 movies, including the line, if it bleeds, we can kill it. And I love when I hear that line, because that was, I can't remember what character spoke that in the first movie, but it was like, yeah, it was a great throwback to it. Naru is just, the fight scene she has with it, she gives it a hell of a fight. She probably, of all the people who've had fights with this, hers was probably the most physical, because she's a badass. She's, Xena Warrior Princess would have trouble with her. I do want them to do a sequel to this, because there is some throwbacks, and there is a major one at the end. I want you guys, I'm not gonna tell you what it is, but there is a major one at the end that involves the second movie. And there's also, if you don't, just after you see that ending, stay and watch the credits a little bit, because there is, I caught a glimpse of what could be a teaser for a sequel. So maybe if this is good enough, we will get a sequel. I would love to see a sequel. Yeah, this movie did get some hate, and I think it's worth a sequel. I went in this movie with an open mind, because I wanted to give it a chance, and I'm glad I did. Maybe, if we get a sequel, I don't think if we do a sequel, depending on what time period they make it in, it would have to be, I don't think if they make a sequel, it won't be in Dutch, but this is actually pretty good. Anyways, I am Echo Zero, and I will see you on the flip side. Toodaloo.
I am the Ice Lord, your host, and today we're going to be talking about Duncan Skiles' 2018 film, The Clove Hitch Killer, starring Dylan McDermott as Don Burnside, Charlie Plummer as Tyler, his son, Samantha Mathis, who is also an American Psycho, as the sleepy girlfriend, as the wife, Cindy, Madison Beatty as Tyler's girlfriend, Cassie, or soon-to-be girlfriend, love interest, let's say. Tyler lifts his dad's truck so he can go make out with a girl by the name of Amy, played by the beautiful Emma Jones. She finds a piece of disturbing pornography in the front seat of the truck and is totally turned off and is asked to be brought home. This triggers off something in the son Tyler, where he starts to begin to believe that his dad, played by Dylan McDermott, is actually their town's famous clove hitch killer. Long story short, Dylan McDermott's character is actually the serial killer known as the clove hitch killer, who has been inactive for 10 years. This killer is based off of Dennis Rader, or the BTK killer from Wichita, Kansas. BTK stood for bind, torture, kill. Originally, because of his association with the Cub Scouts, I thought that this might loosely be based on Anatoly Slivko's character, but they're basically in different time periods. While they were about 10 years contemporary between 1974 and 1985, they were one's from Russia. Dennis Rader was from Wichita, Kansas. So this is more based on BTK. And once you, about an hour into the movie, you get to the reveal where, yes, you finally realize, oh, Dylan McDermott's definitely the clove hitch killer. And it's suspenseful all the way through to the end. Although it's an hour and 50 minutes long, it doesn't suffer from much pacing or editing problems, so that's a bonus. It does seem to fly by. It's not boring at all, even though it's about what seems to be a good down-home Christian country living family in the Midwest or Middle America. And it just so happens that the father is a serial killer, a horrible binding, torturing, killing serial killer. And it's a heart-wrenching story. It's truly a murder mystery, psychological thriller, if you will, but I would call it suspense. It has a lot of elements of a suspense film. It's very well made. A lot of the shot composition is beautiful. This has some great performances. Dylan McDermott is awesome. The son, played by Charlie Plummer, he does a great job. The character Cassie, played by Madison Beatty, she's a real firecracker, this Madison Beatty. I hope to see her in some other movies, because she's pretty cool. And Dylan McDermott's character is just played so creepy. You never know up until the very end whether or not he's actually going to be the clove hitch killer or not. It's so ambiguous, difficult to tell, but it makes it worth watching through to the very end. It's a very non-linear storyline, but it's easy to follow. And so I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. I am the Ice Lord, and I bid you adieu.
Hey everybody, welcome to Now It's Dark. I'm Jim. I want to talk to you about a movie that just blew me away. It's a movie called Clock. It's a Hulu original. This film was written and directed by Alexis Jacknow. It's about a woman's desperate attempt to fix her broken biological clock. Our main character, Ella, is played by Deanna Agron. We have the Dr. Elizabeth Simmons, who's very, very predominant in this movie, played by Melora Hardin, and she seemed familiar. Jay Ali played Aiden, and he also seemed familiar. And I don't see in the credits here... Oh yeah, Saul Rubinek played Joseph, who was Ella's father. He is also recognizable. So this was a lot of craziness that I wasn't expecting. And I didn't know at first that this was a Hulu original. I thought it was just like a movie that went straight to Hulu, but it was a Hulu made movie. It's an hour and 31 minutes. It is rated 5 stars on IMDb. I think it's actually, in my opinion, it's higher than that. This would go up near 7. Like, it's really good. It's crazy good. I'm going to do the best I can to express why I feel that way without spoiling. But, yeah, so this story follows Ella. She's a designer, an interior designer. It opens up with a scene with her friends, one of whom is pregnant, and she's going to be designing the nursery. And so they're having like a little party, a little garden party type thing, and Ella's getting bombarded with, when are you going to have kids, and all these other kinds of questions. And that's like a reoccurring theme in the beginning of this movie, is how often she's asked, because she's, I think, 37. Yeah, 37. And, Ella just doesn't feel, she doesn't want kids. And there's a really cool, at this beginning, we're setting the stage for where Ella's mind is at. And they did this neat thing. It was very quick and it was a little trickery. But one of her girlfriends asks her, well, what do you do all day without any kids? And then it just advances to this montage, and we see her going through all of these daily things for her, very busy businesswoman. And then it just cuts back to the garden party. Like I thought that was like it to be a transition into following Ella into whatever rest of the story, but it takes us right back to the garden party. I thought that was pretty clever. So Ella is feeling, the pressure from friends and her father, in particular, not so much from her husband, about the biological clock ticking. There's a lot of subtle imagery and sounds in this movie, right off the rip too, that kind of, like, later on you're like, oh yeah, they showed that egg earlier in the movie. There's eggs, spiders, clocks, auditory background noises like clock ticking. There's this tall woman who we find out who that is in the movie. So Ella decides to, she has her annual examination. Her mother had died from breast cancer, so she has begun the stage of her life where she's getting annual checkups at 37 to, catch any warning signs of breast cancer or whatnot. And then that leads to her finding out about this group that is doing a study that can fix biological clocks, because Ella and the doctor during this exam have a deep discussion about whether or not Ella has a clock or if it's just broken. And then it leads us to Ella undercover going to this, I keep saying it's a clinic, it has a name and I just didn't write it down and I can't recall it off the top of my head. But she goes through the 10-day procedure. That's very psychological. There's a lot of, again, like I said, imagery, sounds. She's doing the procedures and the therapy sessions. There's so much clever story within those therapy sessions. It's just really well crafted. That actually the movie pacing is pretty good for a movie that, is a psychological thriller. There's definitely some horror elements, and especially in the third act, there's some definite horror elements. But I would say psychological thriller, and really just like clever imagery and writing and dialogue, just really, really good. So it gets intense by the end of this movie, like some of the stuff that's going on. Yeah, so it's an intense movie. It really amps up in the third act. It gets just intense right up to the end. Pretty horrifying, some of the stuff, and there's kind of a twisty twist I definitely didn't see coming. And then just the whole end, the very end, just, I don't know. I highly recommend, if you have Hulu, you give yourself, an hour and a half to sit down and watch this. You may rethink about your biological clock and what you are willing to go through to have one of those little brats in your life. So, I highly recommend Clock 2023 on Hulu.
Thank you for tuning in for 31 days of Hallowwicked / Huluwicked. I hope you all had a great spooky season. Thanks for watching. Peace.